I restarted it. Let's see if that helps.
Okay.
I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but
Yeah, I see your stream is starting now.
okay, good. Yeah. So,
but not prior.
Something in OBS is being wonky.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, because I got the notification on my phone.
All right.
That we are in fact live.
We are indeed live.
All right, yeah. So if you just want to switch this over, we'll get underway.
Yup. Boom. We are live.
All right, what's up, nerds, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things competitive Overwatch and Overwatch 2. If you're joining us tonight for our live show over on our YouTube, welcome. Of course, we'll be doing this, for the foreseeable future in this time slot, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And of course, I want to welcome all of our audio listeners out there who are listening on their favorite podcatcher of choice. Of course, I'm your host, Normally Drunk, and with me tonight to break down all of the chaos that we have had throughout the week, and there's a lot of it, is my co-host, Spyder. Spyder, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I am, I went back into World of Warcraft tonight for the first time in months, and it went okay. I mean, it's kind of like the exit raid. But other than that, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch because I realized that there are less days left than I have to go on the battle pass. So I am definitely trying to play catch up there. Meanwhile, I'm working on a video for the YouTube channel, which is actually starting to take up a lot more time than I wanted to, but I want to put the effort into it. I'm basically going to compare like all the monetization of pretty much most free-to-play first-person shooter games, and some of them that may have like paid expansions and stuff. But it's going to be like a real deep dive, and I've got I started with one Excel spreadsheet, and now I'm up to like 6 different sheets of breaking down like all the different things, because it's never like one-to-one. Like, Apex has skins, but it also has gun skins, which are like a premium thing. Valorant doesn't have player skins, but it does have gun bundles. So it's interesting, but we got a lot of to talk about, so I don't want to beat around the bush tonight. Last week was like the victory lap, but this week it seems like we're saying goodbye.
Yeah, last week was a victory lap. This one was more cutthroat, to say the least. But yeah, like I greatly look forward to, one, not only you finishing this battle pass video, but two, you also have to redo it in season 3, which we'll get into later, because there were some comments about changes coming to the battle pass or hinting at it in regards to the dev blog post that we had earlier today. But man, it's definitely been an interesting week. Last night, myself, Ren, and one of our community members who I met through Warcraft, Tink, sat down with the Pharaoh voice actor Jen Cohn. That was absolutely fantastic. The interview was up on our YouTube. That will also be dropping the audio version of said interview along with this episode tomorrow morning. But we had an absolute blast with that. Touching up on obviously like her work in Overwatch as Pharaoh, but also like touching up on other projects she's done in the past, including some Shakespeare that she did in GTA 5, which was an interesting conversation to say the least. But all in all, this week as a whole has just been, man, it's been pretty brutal out there in regards to roster apocalypse 2023 in this case, entering this off season. But before we dive in, just a couple of general podcast reminders. Of course, you can reach us via email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter, while it's still a thing. Who knows for how long? That's also been another thing. Hashtag RIP Twitter has been trending basically all day at HNDOverwatch. And of course, you can reach us over on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned, roster apocalypse is upon us. A lot of team options have either been declined. People have just been released outright. Last I checked, the number was like 55 or something like that. There has been a lot of news within the past week for Overwatch League. with teams entering their rebuild phase, and just trying to figure out where exactly people are going to land and things like that. And along with that, we do have the new roster construction rules for the 2023 Overwatch League season, which includes kind of like the key dates that we need to be keeping an eye on for in regards to when players are entering free agency. We also have the deadline for like when you need to be at the league minimum in regards to having at least 5 players signed to your roster. And then, there's one beyond, of course, who have the minimum of 6 players assigned to the team. But it is important to note they did temporarily, or to a degree, waived the 30-day contracts. So we don't have the same level of rollover that we had with the 30-day contracts here in the past season. But I guess, like, for me personally, Spyder, I would say like the big point in regards to like the discussion, at least online, especially for like the Overwatch League community, has just been transparency. The first week there was a ton of conjecture. We didn't really know what was going on. We didn't know like what the key dates were for any of like the roster moves or things like that. And then we kind of had a couple of teams who were posting via Twitter, kind of like okay, like, here's our team options. We'll let you know if they're accepted, if they've been declined, who's entering a free agency. But not a lot of teams have done that. But regardless, a couple of days have passed since then, and we just have a plethora of movement happening all at once. And it's just like, man, I need to like take a moment and just catch my breath, because it's been a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, that's to put it mildly. It seems like every day we're adding like another player to like our internal sheet, and then we're like trying to keep up with the tweets while tweets are still a thing, like you said. It's it's been interesting, but I do like that they did give us like this transparency. Like they at least gave us something. Normally we're like, all right, what are the dates? And then we're like a week or two into the season, and they're like, okay, well, midway through the season, here's when you can stop signing people. So they're transparent with this. And there have been other leaks along the way that kind of helped to the transparency, even though it was like indirect. Like a lot of these teams, like announcing releases and stuff like that, are allowing some of these players to explore free agencies while they're still in like negotiations, which they haven't done before in the past. Like, I know one of them we're not really going to talk about much tonight is Dallas. Dallas said they're going to let the whole team explore free agency together as a unit, but other than that, like, nobody has been released. Nobody has, other than that, we don't know. So this is, at least in the time I've covered Overwatch League, this has been like the most releases I've seen as fast as possible. So looking at the dates, looking at the January 6th timeline, or January 16th timeline, and then March 1st for 6 players and January 16th for 5 players. I wouldn't be too surprised if those rumors of like a late January, early February start date for the season that we saw Dante, tweeting about might actually be true. So this, it'll be fun. I hope more teams do give us like almost like the Dallas Field did, like, hey, we are negotiating with some of these players, but we're gonna let them explore. And Shanghai has been pretty open with it as well. Like, Shanghai has said, like, Fletta's leaving for Valorant. We're still talking to these people, and these people are just gone. Like, Void just signed off of Overwatch. He's like, all right, I'm done, bye. And then he's going into military service, I think is the current going theory. So, it's good there up front, but holy cow, do we have a lot of people to talk about.
Yeah, and like, obviously we could spend like all day talking about the releases, which I really don't want to do. So I just want to go down the list really quick. This is going to be a mouthful in its own right. We'll break it up a little bit, and then we'll circle back. to kind of like the remaining pieces, because in some cases, at least for like New York, for example, they released everybody. Like there's just no one left at that point. So
There's a
obviously it's a
couple of
clean
them.
slate.
LA Valiant released everybody. New York released everybody. Philly basically released everybody. Only MN3 and Zest are left. So I don't know. In some cases, it's definitely quicker to just name who's left.
I mean, I guess that would be one way to do it. So yeah, land terrain. Let's just go alphabetical. Who remains? We have Hawk, Kai, and Vigilante still on the team with releases to Gators, Speedily, Ultraviolet, OG, Venom, and Nero. So a relatively clean slate here, all in all. And like, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I guess like the support duo was probably like more of the questionable decision in that regard. But like not really knowing what sort of contracts these players had just outright is really going to be like the thing that's just like, man, I really don't know how much really add to this outside of like my, okay, like obviously like there are certain players, throughout all of these teams who we have a good indicator will get picked up by another team. And, some players who maybe just didn't get play time, maybe, they'll move back to contenders or whatnot. So this will be competing at some level of play. But I would not be surprised if a lot of teams are just going in the direction of, and the main rumor has been, we're gonna like consolidate. We're gonna have a lot of like the Western teams picking up Western talent. There are a lot of rumors circling around East, primarily in regards to one of the news bits that we'll be talking about later tonight in regards to NetEase and Blizzard Gaming. So there's been a lot of discussion about the Chinese teams moving to Korea to help combat that. So we might see some fluctuations there, but Chinese players are still going to have like an in regards to like the Overwatch League. But man, it's just like trying to make sense of some of these is definitely going to be a little bit harder for some more than others. But Atlanta, I think, really just needs to find that swagger again. They got to really embrace that bad boy energy that kind of lacked this past season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never really enjoyed that with Atlanta. Like, it always seemed like, I don't know, it seemed fake to me. Like, after Dogman left, it seemed like they were trying to just keep that going. And like Hawk and Gator, like seemed like they were just trying too hard. Like it just came off as, I don't know, that false bravado. But in terms of like who they let go, obviously you touched on the big ones. Like the back line was like the standout this year. Obviously Hawk did well. Kai had his moments. Venom, stepped up near the end, but wasn't amazing. Speedily never quite lived up to the hype. And that could just be, everything else going on in the team. But OG and Ultraviolet, definitely were like the standouts for them this season. So if I had to guess, and this is blind guess, they were on like a 1-year contract, and they kind of know that they could get more money, so they wanted to shop around a little bit. If I was them, because when you looked at Atlanta, you said, oh, Hawk's pretty good, but then you were like, but man, Ultraviolet and OG are like tearing it up in the back line. So I'm interested to see where some of these other players land. Like, obviously I don't have a lot of high expectations for Gator. He just did not display much this season. Nero, Venom, and Speedily I think could land on teams, especially if Western teams are really looking for Western players. But Nero is probably the longest shot because he didn't do too well this season, but he does have that tenure, so he has at least that going for him.
Yeah, and dependent on like how heavy of like an Overwatch League news week we have next week, maybe something we could do is just craft our own Las Vegas Eternal team out of the free agency pool or something like that once the droplet really starts to hit now, because right now it's just the floodgates at this point in time. So just to speed this up, I'm just going to quickly rattle off some of the other releases. From Boston, we have MCD, Itzel, and Faith. On the Florida Mayhem, they released Animo and Sir Majed. Hanjo Spark released Teru, Benar, and Architect. Valiant, you mentioned, they dropped everyone, so that's Innovation, Becky, Esin, Sazin, Marvel, Dia, Lanza, Haker, and Molly. The London Spitfire released Poco, Khan, and Shax. New York dropped everyone, so that would include Gainem Jin, Ansun J, No One, Yaki, Kellen, and Flora. Paris released Wub and Kwawi. Philadelphia released Aim God, Bolosria, Fixa, and Fury. Also re-signed Emin Tharinsas, which you had mentioned earlier, with Carpe retiring from Overwatch to pursue a career in Valorant with the T1 squad. We have Shock releasing Striker, Kaluj, Sam, Mikey, with Kilo also hidden free agency. Dragons release Fleta, Void, Fate, Who Are You, Baby, and Alicia Gone. And Toronto, just to wrap things up, release Hizu, Twilight, Muse, and Although. Oh man, I want to say we were up to date leading into the show, so that should be everybody. So again, you have teams just completely wiping the board top to bottom. We did have a lot of like coach movement as well. Like Shock lost one of their coaches. I think it was Kasoris, who's now is like the Toronto Defiant head coach. Was one of the announcements. Spark made a ton of coaching changes as well. But just as a whole, like out of these players, like were there really any one of them that really like caught you by surprise or just blindsided you really?
Not really. I mean, obviously Fleta leaving was a surprise, but we know why now. Honestly, looking like I know you guys can't see it, but I have like I can't see it at the camera, but I have like the whole list here, and I have like red highlighted for like everybody. Honestly, like the big ones for me actually stayed. Like looking at the East first, Gushue stayed, Alpha East stayed, and then in terms of like one of the bigger ones that we talked about last week was someone. Someone is still listed on the Florida Mayhem, but in terms of like people who were like let go, I was a little surprised that San Francisco released the people that they did. But once I saw it and thought about it for a minute, it definitely seems like San Francisco's going all Korean at this point. Like it really feels to me like they're just going to push like a full Korean team. London releasing the players that they released doesn't surprise me. Poco didn't, I love Poco, but he didn't really like fit in with that team. Like he came in and played Sigma a couple times and looked good. Like he out of everybody on this list, I definitely think he looked the best for the minimum amount of playtime that he had. But like Khan was like a pickup, like a, I don't know, mercy pickup from the old Paris Eternal. Shax just never really lived up to his glory again. So I'm a little curious to see what Florida does with their, and I know I'm bouncing around, but that's kind of the nature of this conversation. I want to know what Florida's going to do with their back line. Can you imagine like Florida, if they picked up that Atlanta back line? That would be like a super scary team. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm curious to see what Philly does. It definitely seems like they're going to go all rookies again. And it worked out okay for them. So until, Zest got taken out by whatever happened to him. And we'll see from there. Obviously 2 teams are absent from this list, and those are both of the Texas teams. So I'm curious to see how that shakes out. We did talk about Dallas a little bit ago, but I'm surprised that we haven't seen anything like more from Houston. Like we really haven't seen any drops. So to me, that says like they're happy with what they got. I really expected like a Pelican drop, just because we know everything prior in the season, but maybe they've worked that out at this point. Like, a third place finish does help. Like they say in Overwatch League, winning fixes all problems. So I definitely could see how maybe Houston wants to run it back. Maybe they will pick up like an actual tank and then work on Dante a little more. But this is this is a big start. Obviously, there are a couple of teams that have no players, so I can't talk about the Valiant or the NYXL. They're just gonna pick up, you know, probably like a wholesale contenders team. And Kasha mentioned in the chat that they did drop Creative Dog and Lep, and yet we talked about that last week. I just like meant more. Like I was curious about mostly Pelican at this point. So
Right.
I don't think they're going to get rid of Merritt, because Merritt was, as Totem will tell you, the crowd's favorite person. So he, outside of Dante, I think he's kind of taken the point of poster child for that team. So it's like I said, it's a lot to take in, and every day I get up and I check Twitter while I still can, and I'm like, oh, another one bites the dust. Here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will note too, like one of the other teams that is completely absent, who haven't really posted a ton on social media, are also the Soul Dynasty. The Gladiators were one of the teams who did the team option graphic or contract thing, but like we haven't had like official announcements from them per se. But I will quickly just go over the current status just so we're aware of it right now. So Reiner's contract expired. The team option for Space was declined. Looks like Kevster's team option was taken. Happy's team option was declined. Contract expired for both Shoe and Skewed, and then the team option was taken for Funny Astro for the Glads. So it's currently where we sit with the other LA team in this case. So it's not going to be a complete overhaul like it was with the LA Valiant, which in that regard was completely understandable given the way that their season panned out. Obviously, like the Gladiators wanted more out of this season, especially with the start that they had. Unfortunately, sometimes you pop off early and the wheels fall off. It's unfortunate to see, but regardless, I think the Gladiators as a whole were happy with how most of the season went, but of course, not quite making it as far as they could have in playoffs, especially, is definitely a pretty heavy blow.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their options and stuff, Space doesn't surprise me. Kevster definitely doesn't surprise me that they kept him. He was, second or third in votes for MVP of the season. You're going to lock that down. Happy never really gelled with the team, I think. He just seemed to be on a different page. Shoe, Skewed. I would imagine they say the contract is expired, but they're probably still in talks with them. So Reiner, same thing, contract expired, probably still in talks. I would imagine, looking at this squad, we're probably going to see most of them back. Maybe they'll pick up a couple of contenders players and go from there. But this is kind of what we want to see from all the teams. Just current contract status and happy smiling face. It's kind of funny because everybody in that picture, like I had put it up on stream, and I'll put it up again. Everybody in the picture that they posted is smiling except for Happy. I mean, Reiner's kind of iffy, so but yeah, it I don't know. I guess he just wasn't happy.
All right. So, sometimes you just don't feel it,
Yeah. I don't know. Like I was mad at Washington when Happy was here because we had the Washington Justice McDonald's meals, but it was like a 20-piece nugget. I'm like, boy, they really missed the ball with that Happy meal. Like they could have doubled down on that. And then when they traded him, I was like, well, maybe it's a good idea they didn't name it after a player. That's never come back and bit anybody in the ass before.
Yeah, definitely not. So yeah, definitely one of the heaviest weeks that we have seen in regards to Overwatch League movement. Obviously, with just a number of players in the league, just as a whole, we're not going to see a repeat of this week. Just it's numerically impossible. So we'll see what happens by the next recording in that regard. But of course, with it being the off season, it's always important to just, kind of keep tabs of what's going on in regards to Overwatch contenders. Obviously, O2 Blast having a partnership with the San Francisco Shock is something to keep an eye on, as they have just been hard diffing everyone in contenders Korea. I know they had just played Pantera, who were the other like 3-0 team here the other day, and it just was not even close. Max was just dicking around on the Sigma in that series, and they had no idea just how to deal with him at all. So obviously, he's going to be one of the more highly touted tank free agents leading into the 2023 season. So who knows? Maybe we'll see him on the Shock. Maybe he'll go to another team. But one of the other things that we have seen, at least like with some of these LFT tweets, has been some of the old guard looking for teams like Bumper, Hoxel. I know there's been a few others as well. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see some of the OGs return into the Overwatch League for the 2023 season as they look to start their Overwatch 2 career.
I hope Bumper comes back. I miss Bumper. I feel like he got like such a shit end of the stick. He was so fun to watch in GOATs, and so just put him on like a superhero at this point, which is basically what tanks are if they're played right and aggressively. And he could be a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, like a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, and all their tweets are the same. It's like LFT, OW2, we go again, kind of thing. So I'm interested to see if some of these people got it. Obviously, not all of the old guard is coming back, but I think the ones that have put up some tweets could be interesting. I did find it funny. Like Custa was actually talking about it on his stream, and they were like, Custa's gonna come back, and he's like, I'm in the middle of a VOD review. You think I want to play against Proper? Are you fucking crazy? He's like, that kid would clap me. He's like, no. My time is done. Like, I played 2018 Overwatch. That's not even like, that's silver compared to this. So I'm curious to see if any of them get teams. I'd like to see, a little more for them recently, like maybe a contenders play or something. But yeah, I think there's so much talent out there. They have a lot to prove.
Yep. And the free agency pool this year is going to be absolutely nuts with just a number of contracts that were expiring after the 2022 season. Now, with that being said, of course, we'll keep tabs on any other movement that we are having on the Overwatch League side of things. But, more contenders regions have started to open up and get underway. And most of them are either like starting this week or towards the end of the month, so it shouldn't be too long before we have all the regions active in that regard. So I'll definitely be tuning in when I can on that front, especially when NA kicks off here shortly. But been enjoying watching some of the Korean streams, even if they do air at 2 a.m. Central Time. I'm just watching the VOD because ain't no way in hell I'm staying up that late to watch contenders and then have to wake up a couple hours after the fact. But anyways, it's time that we go around the watch and talk about what is happening right now with Overwatch 2. Again, a lot of stuff going on, really. Something I didn't mention last week, we do have a new Sojourn novel, which is available to buy wherever books are sold. I got my copy in the other day here. Have not been able to jump in as of yet because I, too, am trying to play catch-up in regards to the Battle Pass. Because I am also behind on getting my Mythic Genji skin, and hopefully I'll be able to acquire it. Time will tell on that front, but we had a new patch. And, this is the, quote, mid-season, and I'm going to air quote that, balance patch, which was supposed to come out, like, last month. Then it got delayed, and then, they're like, oh, yeah, it's coming out on Tuesday, and Tuesday hits. Warcraft had, their expansion pre-patch. And we're like sitting around. It's time for 1 o'clock Central. All right, we're like, all right, where's the new balance patch? Nope, not coming out. It got delayed again, and everyone is up in arms. Twitter is ablaze, not because of Elon Musk, but because of Blizzard in this case. And everyone's just like, WTF, Blizzard, what the F is going on? And it got delayed because of a critical bug that they had discovered. So I'm like, all right, it's already been delayed once. we'll see. Maybe it'll be up today. But sure enough, it ended up being today, Thursday, that we have this balance patch.
Finally.
Yes, mid-season. Now that the season ends in 2 weeks.
They never said what season. It's mid-fall. Mid.
Yeah, they didn't say mid, like, competitive season or like the season 1 balance patch, right? So they at least can fall back on that.
Mid-season for Andor of Star Wars. There's definitely it seems like they just kept finding like critical bug after one after another, and working in software development, it fucking sucks, but it happens, man. I'm currently going through it at work on something that we've been trying to push out for the past 2 months, so it definitely happens, but it's a good patch. We kind of knew what was in this patch, so I don't think anything really needs to be talked about, except for they nerfed Junkrat for some reason.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so this stuff was already in the game. This was just the first time that it was in the patch notes.
What do you mean, the Junkrat changes?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought like this was new to today.
No, this has actually been in the game for a while. There's been a lot of discussion about that on the forums and on social media.
Is that just specific to Junkrat, or is that because that's not all of them? Because
yes, specifically for Junkrat, because that was like the newer change that was in the notes that wasn't there the prior time.
Got it. Because all the other changes are highly noticeable, so that makes sense. Although I only played one round of Junkrat today, and I never really noticed the trap changes, just because of the fact that I usually set it somewhere expecting a flanker, and it's usually there on time. Very rarely do I walk up to somebody and throw a trap at their face and go, ha, step in that thing you just totally saw me throw at you. But obviously the big outlier is still Sojourn, which they addressed in the blog post we'll talk about in a little bit. Or they at least said they're going to address it in the blog post. They announced the announcement of the nerf. But the rest of these changes were like super noticeable. Like obviously Zarya was the big one. She was like super oppressive pretty much at every rank. Like you had to be like almost like a pro player of counting the bubble timings and being like, okay, she used 2 bubbles back to back. We have 3.7 seconds to kill her, and if we don't kill her, we're all dead. And she'll have grab for the next 3 fights. So I did play quite a bit today, and all of them were noticeable, but that was definitely the biggest one. Genji was another noticeable one for me, because I have been playing a lot of Sojourn, because she is busted. But even when I was playing other characters, like Genji just was such a great duelist. So all these changes I think were fine. The Kiriko one, I don't really understand why it needed to happen. Like it seems like they wanted her to be less inclined to teleport in, from my reading of it, which if you're, like I said last week or the week before, if that's how you're playing Kiriko, you're basically playing her wrong, because you're supposed to be in and then you're supposed to teleport out. So all in all, we expected all of these. It's nothing crazy. At this point we're kind of like, okay, you could have probably just rode this season out and put all this stuff in season 2 with Sojourn, and I think people wouldn't have cared, because that's all people talk about anyways. They're like, how is Sojourn still a thing at this point?
Yeah, and everyone who's like, oh, they delayed the patch so they can like sneak in some Sojourn nerfs, and I was like, what planet are you living on? It's not happening until at least season 2. We already heard the reasoning behind it in regards to Alec Dawson in that one like dev Twitter space about how like Sojourn is absolute garbage in regards to like the lower ranks, and that was basically some of it, and like that's a whole other topic. But yeah, definitely that's still like the number one thing that people are talking about in regards to this patch. Now that being said, there were also a couple of other things. We have a new batch of like the Overwatch League tournament skins being added to the shop. Those are available to purchase with 200 Overwatch League tokens. We also have some server-side adjustments in regards to competitive play when it comes to placement matches and just determining, skill tier and division. We also have the rollout for some of the audio transcriptions for PC players in voice chat for select countries as part of like the defense matrix initiative that they were doing. So if your voice chat is being recorded, you will get a notification as you enter the voice chat. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. We also have aim assist being added for crossplay in those lobbies for all matches outside of competitive, which is the important thing. They also are backtracking further on the SMS Protect. It's now allowing prepaid phones globally and should finish rolling out tomorrow, which would be Friday. And we also have some new highlight intros that have been added as login rewards. Those are live notes to be running throughout the end of the month. I know there's a new Sojourn one, which is going through November 17th through the 21st. There's one for Junker Queen, which is November 21st through the 26th. And then after that, we have a Kiriko highlight intro for the 26th through the 30th. So yeah, that was basically everything. But like, I remember just like when I logged in initially today, when the new patch hit, I saw all these highlight intros, and then I'm just like, well, what are these? Because like there wasn't like any note about them anywhere initially, and then it was like much later, like 6 or however many hours later that over like the social media manager tweeted something out about it. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Because, you just go, you see like this new thing in the hero gallery and you're like, well, what's this? And then everything's locked. And then you're just like, it was like giving you a notification of like season 2, basically. But that's, December. That's not now. So then I was just left really confused as to like what this actually was without having any sort of like knowledge of anything behind it. So that was a little perplexing in that regard. But all in all, in my games today, I didn't see a ton of Zarya play, so I can't really say too much on that. The few games that I did tank, I was actually playing Reinhardt, so I didn't actually see how big the changes to Zarya are. I think for me, the bigger thing with Zarya was less so like the barriers as it was so much the beam range that she has, because it just feels like even if you're like mid-range, you're still just getting gunned down by just the particle effects from her, which definitely sucks in that regard. But good luck trying to kill her anytime that Kiriko popped her ultimate, because that was just impossible.
Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be those interactions. But yeah, I played every game I played had a Zarya in it at one point, and like I said, it was vastly noticeable that she was just, I wouldn't say easier to kill, but there was definitely more leeway to actually be able to kill her. Now with the inverse of that, that also means that I saw a lot of Roadhog today too. And that is definitely going to take some getting used to, because I've kind of forgotten how far his hook is. So there was definitely a couple of times like I'd play Zenyatta or something and I'd get hooked and I'd be like, what, where was he? Like, how did he hit me from that far away? Like, I think we were playing Midtown and we were on attack and the Roadhog was on top of like that first bridge area where you can cut through the subway car, or I guess the train car, because it's not underground. And he was literally up on top of there, and I literally came around the corner where the cab is, and he hooked me from up there. I was like, what? Like, how is that even like, luckily, I didn't die, because he, like, dropped me off the ledge, and I was like, oh, well, I'll take that. And then I immediately died to, like, their DPS, because they're like, oh, hey, there's a robot guy right there. Let me just kill him. So, and along with that, you forgot the biggest patch note.
I mean, I didn't forget it so much as say that I didn't want to talk about her because she's the Antichrist.
You mean you like selectively blacked it out of your memory? May is back. So May is back. And I had a lot of fun on May today because along with Roadhog, people seem to forget how to play against May, and people would just walk into me and I'd just wall them and kill them, like, repeatedly. Even other Mays, like, I didn't understand, like, Mays would walk up to me and I'd be like, okay, and then they would wall me and I'd be like, cool, okay, and then I would just wall myself and walk out. Like, bye. So, seeing May back has been fun. I don't think she's meta until I think she could be meta once Sojourn gets nerfed. But right now, just Sojourn's so oppressive. And if you're playing like Sojourn Reaper, it's hard to play against that as a Mei and get value. Like you can stay alive and you can do stuff, but that's a hard team to play against. And I think when Sojourn gets nerfed, we might see Mei get on the rise a little bit because she's deceptively good. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm glad she's back because I miss playing her because I'm that person in your quick play games that is playing Mei or Bastion or something. And you're like, I hate this person.
See, well, here's the thing. Like, obviously, like with Mei being reintroduced to the game, a 5 GB update, by the way, and everyone's just like, well, what's in this patch? And you're just like, oh, they just added Mei back to the game. I'm like, well, they don't need 5 gigs for her. But anyways, obviously, every game I played today in quick play had Mei in it on the opposition. Our teams were never running Mei because I was with D from Omnic Weekly doing a 5-stack, and it's just I can't tell you how many of the games I had where the Mei player would just hit W and hold left click. All they were doing was trying to freeze lock you, and I'm just like, that's great, but it's like that's just so annoying. I can't even remember like how long of a stretch she was out of the game because obviously like Torbjorn was in a similar situation, much like Bastion was at one point, just not to the same extent that Mei was. But I'm just sitting there thinking like, man, you haven't been able to play this hero for like a month or whatever, and like you're just insta-logging her just to hold left click, and that's all you're doing. I'm like, at least use the toolkit and not just like one aspect of the hero. But outside of that, like, I honestly don't have like a huge issue like dealing with the Mei. I was playing a lot of Pharah today actually to deal with the Meis, just to fly over and just get behind the teams and whatnot, boop them out of place whenever they're placing their ice wall. So they're not just getting the instant gratification of killing someone whenever they wall someone off. But not having Mei in the game for such a period, for me personally, felt a lot in a better place just with the route that they're going with crowd control in the game. So like without Mei in the game being one of the sold heroes, it actually has that sense of crowd control still to a degree. And obviously like we still have some snares with like Sojourn. And in soon enough, we'll have another snare with Ramatra, which we'll talk about. It felt more in line with the design goal that they have with just lack of crowd control. So taking her out of the equation wasn't like super like noticeable. It's just like, it is what it is. It's kind of like right now, it's day 1 of the patch. Everyone's gonna be locking Mei. We're gonna have this honeymoon phase, and it's kind of gonna be back to the norm where people are gonna differentiate a bit more in quick play. But I didn't really have like the same effect with like running Bastion because like Bastion's ult is still absolute trash tier right now, and there's been a lot of talk of the community whining about like, oh, just revert back the ultimate to what it was, and it's just like, no, you just make what he has better. The mortar shots just aren't that good.
I think he just needs. I think they just need speed. I think there's just too much time in between. Like I think maybe lower the damage and increase the speed and number of shots that he has. So like it's more of like a carpet bombing than like a precision strike. Because you got to get real lucky to get some kills with that. Like I got a couple of kills today, specifically on Baptiste. Like Baptiste seem like easy targets because you wait for them to like do their little bunny hop and then you just send it down. So by the time they hit the ground, they're dead. But the rest of Bastion's kit actually works pretty well against what is currently being run right now. As long as you don't get hooked by Roadhog. But I would run into Pharahs as well. And then I would switch to Bastion, and a lot of Pharahs, I don't know, they just don't think Bastion can do that much damage anymore. I'm like, as long as I have Transform up and you're in the open air, you're dead. Like, I didn't understand it. So, I have been enjoying Bastion. I'd hate to say it. I initially went into it because I was like, all right, I got a couple of seasonal challenges that I want to get done with him.
Okay.
He has like, mitigate some damage and do some other stuff, like break barriers, like the dumbest challenge ever. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get these done. So I ended up playing him a lot more than I thought and enjoying it a lot more. So I gotta get some of the other challenges done, but I did knock out the Bastion challenges today. I knocked out the Zenyatta challenge today, where you get an environmental kill with a snap kick. I actually got a play of the game where I got a triple kill on Li Zhang. Like, they were all crossing the bridge, and I just they walked right past me, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then they turned around and started chasing me. So then I just kicked him like right in the corner of the bridge on Gardens. I think it's Gardens, and they just, like, three of them fell over. I was like, cool, challenge done, play of the game achieved. Now I'm just gonna enjoy my free transcendence. But I after the patch today, I think it's in a really good spot. Like, I think everything they did today was good. The single outlier to me is still Sojourn. So,
Well, of course.
but beyond that, I think the game is actually playable for pretty much any character you want to play.
Yeah, like there are still like minor things to characters that like irk me to a degree, but like I wouldn't say like obviously like this is one that I bring up when we're doing quick play. Like just random Hanzo shots, just one shot in you. Like I honestly like at the end of the day, to me that isn't a huge deal where I'm like, oh, we shouldn't have like one shot kills. It just it feels bad to play against, but like Hanzo as a whole, like he's in a fine spot. He's not really meta. Like snipers are not in like the perfect spot, but like they're not super oppressive to play against. So like I'm not gonna like harp on that. But yeah, obviously the main thing right now is still Sojourn. There are changes coming. To what extent we don't know yet. But right now it's kind of like, okay, let's see how these balance changes do. Let's take a look at the win rates, see how the adjustments have done, from different like skill tiers, and then they will go from there. But yeah, just the games I played today, I was primarily just playing Pharah Bastion, which is like not something I would normally be doing. Like I haven't really played a ton of Bastion. I was playing Torb a little bit today as well on push maps, which I haven't really practiced at all in Overwatch 2, playing Torb. So I was actually having fun with the builders today. But I can't tell you how many games I had, Spyder, when like I would be up against a Doomfist playing Bastion and they would dive in and then
Oh,
it's like, you're not going anywhere.
I saw
Then,
so
you
many
just
Doomfists today too. Like every game they would start on Doomfist and then they would switch to Zarya or Roadhog. Like, what? Like, Doomfist is in such a bad spot right now. And I'm okay with that because I hate playing against Doomfist, whether it's DPS or tank Doomfist.
right.
He just, I don't know, he's just not fun to play against. But yeah, like, so many people would just jump in, and whether I was on Mei or Bastion or Sojourn or Reaper, I'm like, okay, well, as soon as your block's gone, you're dead. Because people have gotten really good at not shooting that block unless the Doomfist is baiting it really well, or at very least, using it a little bit and then using that charge to get out. So I expect to see some Doomfist buffs, unfortunately, because Doomfist right now can bully Roadhog if he can outplay him. Like, it's all about the timings. Like, Doomfist is one of the few tanks that can stop Roadhog's breather. Even though Roadhog can hook him out of it's kind of like a balancing act. But I expect to see some Doomfist buffs. I expect to see probably, I don't know, maybe some Roadhog changes, and maybe some Reinhardt buffs, because I feel like Reinhardt is in an okay spot at this point. Like, pretty much anybody can play him, but he definitely feels like the weakest of all the tanks. Like, you've got to be on like King's Row, or you got to be on like the Reinhardt maps to play him, whereas most of the other tanks you can get away with playing them almost anywhere. Ball, I don't know. I haven't seen enough Ball to figure out how annoying or how overpowered or underpowered it is. Like, I've played two games against the ball, and they both went like opposite directions. Like one was super annoying, impossible to kill, and the other one would just dive in and die instantly. So I don't have anything to say about him, but wrapping up the patch conversation, I am curious to see what they do in the end with Sojourn. But we'll see what they do with the other heroes too, I guess.
Absolutely. So outside of the new patch today, we also had a new developer blog that was posted on the website, which also introduced one of the new executive producers for Overwatch 2. We just got a first name. I don't know the full name, but it is Jared. We got a couple of things.
They updated it. It's Jared Nuss. It's Neuss. So Jared Nuss. Nuss.
Yeah, we'll just call him Jay. We'll just make it easy. But anyways, so what do we got in here? So they talked about a little bit about just rewards changing a little bit in season 2, which we of course starting in September. Saying that each event is going to have a skin that you can unlock by playing the game. They're going to continue to push the Twitch drop program, so you can earn skins into in-game cosmetics by supporting your favorite creators. I know there's one right now for I think it was the souvenirs or weapon charms. There was one for a Reinhardt mug, and there was also one for a cat keychain as well. They also noted that the team is looking at a mix of battle pass changes for season 3 and beyond.
Hallelujah.
So obviously right now we know you're working on a battle pass video for the YouTube, and obviously initial impressions on a battle pass have been not great. You kind of look at it, even for me, there's definitely been times where I'm solo queuing where it's quick play is just some days feels out of the question. Things just aren't going right, and some of the dailies some days are just not in my favor, and it just feels bad. So then I'm all right, have a bad game or two, and I'm all right, that's enough. I'll come back to this later, and then I don't pick it up, later on in the day. So then I'm just I'm missing out on XP that day. But I don't know where you're at currently on a battle pass, but I think right now I'm at 55. So I haven't been able to put as much time in as I want, but part of that is also just so much of it being solo queue. I really want to find days at work to group up with people, even if it's just one other person, because just adding one more person definitely helps in that regard. Not only for the group XP bonus that you do get for having a party, but just having someone else there who you're able to communicate with, because still to this day, in regards to comms in game for quick play, there's not a lot of that going on still in most of my games, and I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but in my games that's definitely been the case in 90% of the games that I've played.
Yeah.
But I will just say, on the battle pass front, obviously the big thing is, one, if they're gonna stick to the level that they have to unlock heroes is a big one. And also just the level of skins that you get via the battle pass is another hot topic for the community.
Yeah, I will say, to the easier question first, there isn't a lot of comms in any of the games that I've played across multiple levels. But I have noticed that people are using the ping feature more, which I think is good enough for quick play. I don't, I'd love comms and all of that in quick play, but I think the ping system's good enough for most of it. Now, in terms of the battle pass, I think I'm either just about to hit 64 or I hit 64 before I signed out. So I'm getting closer. But yeah, they really need to look at the reward structure. I've been pretty vocal about it from the beginning, because they basically said, here's their battle pass model. It's from 2009. And I'm like, what? Blizzard's MO has always been, we're going to find what other games do and do it better. And that's why people play Blizzard games. That's World of Warcraft. That's basically everything they've done. So it's weird to me that they looked at this battle pass model and said, yeah, this is good. Like, it's not good. It's terrible. And as I'm looking at the numbers and what you actually get compared to other games, and if I could do it, I would pull up the spreadsheet so you could get like a sneak peek of it. It's not great. Like, it just in terms of rewards versus what you're paying for in terms of like cost for skins versus other games. Their whole reward structure is fundamentally broken, and it will kill the game. Like, look at Halo Infinite, a game that I completely forgot existed up until earlier when you and I were talking about it. That just goes to show you, like, Halo Infinite was bashed for its bad battle pass and its bad reward structure, and Overwatch 2 has the same problem, if not worse, because it has a much more vocal fan base. They mentioned that you're going to earn a skin on the battle, like on events, which is atrocious. Like, they could do better than that. They talked about giving better free rewards on the battle pass track. And a lot of this stuff's going to go in the video, but obviously the two biggest things that they need to do is they need to either remove the hero from the battle pass and make it obtainable through some other quest system. Like, that would be fine. If you want to tie it behind like a small separate grind, okay. Which it sounds like is what they're going to do for past heroes. Once you move past, like, they'll do it for Kiriko for people who missed Kiriko in the future. And the second thing is they need to put premium. They need to up the amount of premium currency that you can get, either through the battle pass, through challenges, or it's such a deep conversation, and that's the reason I'm doing the video, and it's the reason the video keeps expanding, because I'm like, okay, well, do I want to talk about this? Yes, I kind of have to talk about this. And the whole quest system and weekly challenges system is bad. The daily, all right, so here's the fundamental breakdown of daily challenges, right? You do 3 daily challenges out of a list of 11. I think there's 11 or 12. I think is what it is. Or no, maybe the daily challenges are less. Maybe there's only like 6 or 7. I'd have to look at the spreadsheet. But you do those daily challenges. You only get credit for 3 of them. Okay, those 3 give you a certain amount of experience. I forget if it's 1,000 or 5,000. I think it's 5,000 for like daily challenge, right? After that, you can complete the other daily challenges, but they don't give you anything, which is stupid. Like, okay, then why didn't you just have 3 daily challenges to begin with? Or so that it's good that they are addressing this. I think the wording that they used and the kind of tone that they put in this was a little disrespectful, because everybody's kind of like, yeah, it fucking sucks. Like, they want to be transparent. They should have said, yeah, we're not happy with it either. We're going to fix it. But it was kind of like, it's not really meeting expectations. And we think there's a few things we can improve. Like, okay, yes, I know you're running this through the PR machine, but it's not going to work out well for you. Like, just look at Halo Infinite. Again, the game that I completely forgot existed, when I have a Master Chief literally sitting right in front of me. Oop. Like, right there. So, yeah, as far as rewards go, it's a much longer conversation.
Absolutely. But yeah, when I saw that like sprinkled in there, I'm like, oh man, Spyder is gonna have to do another one after this.
No.
We need an update video.
Luckily, one of the big games that I was waiting for was Warzone 2.0, because they had announced that they're redoing the battle pass for Warzone 2.0. So I had to wait until the 16th to do that, and then Warzone, basically all of Blizzard Activision servers shit the bed on the 16th because everybody was trying to play Warzone. So then I had to wait till the 17th, and then the blog post came out today. So I'm still definitely in the exploratory phase of this video, so this will definitely make it in the video.
Right on. So outside of that, they also touched on queue times a little bit. Obviously, like the tank and damage queues have been a little bit longer than they, were kind of anticipating. Of course, most of the ideas floated around our focus on the support role and possible support hero reworks. Now, here's the thing. At the end of the day, whenever I'm like, browsing Twitch to watch like the Overwatch streams and I'm like checking out, I'm on to, get my Twitch drops. And I'm like, all right, let's see, like Seagull's playing with Emon and Emon's playing tank and they're sitting in queue for a little bit longer than normal. And what are they doing while they're sitting in queue? They're playing bridge simulator, whatever what I can't even remember the name of the game. It was something about building bridges
Bridge
and
constructor.
yeah.
Put some
I don't know
respect
if
on the
that's
name.
actual name. I don't, that might not even be it. It might be something else entirely. But like obviously like you have streamers like this and like Flats who's like playing like balloons while he's sitting in his tank queues. So when you see something like that, regardless of like what level they're at, obviously like that, raises some awareness like, hey, like these queue times kind of suck right now. But at the end of the day, playing support right now in Overwatch 2 doesn't feel as good as playing DPS and tank. So, like, I understand, like, the idea of, like, okay, maybe we just need to, like, rework some of the support heroes. I don't think we need to go that far. Maybe just having a little bit more utility or just having a little bit more incentive outside of just, like, a flat, like, 100 Battle Pass XP needs to be explored more so than just
Which is
wholesale
also
changes to the support. Yeah, it's just, like, that's just a tiny incentive. And sure, like, even if you're just, like, not flex queuing, but just doing like, DPS and support. And if you get support, you're still getting the XP, whatever. But, just as a support player, just like, it's not really even dangling a carrot in front of your face to like queue up as support right now. So it's like, well, of course you're going to have longer queue times for the other roles in this case.
Yeah, the first of all, the 100 experience, like you get 500 for the first game and then 100 for every game after that. Okay, cool. So that's 100 games per battle pass level, assuming you don't own the battle pass. Obviously, it's 80 games if you own the battle pass because you get that sweet buff. Cool. Let me just fit 80 games of Overwatch in a day to get one battle pass level. It's I don't know. It's easily fixable. Kick it up to 500 every game and make it 1,000 the first game. Or shit, if you want to be really generous, kick it up to 1,000. And just make it 1,000 every game. And that'll get people queuing support and flex all the time because there are people like us that want to blow through the battle pass. There are people who only have a limited amount of time and say, okay, well, what's going to get me the best bang for my buck right now? 100 battle pass points? No, I'd rather just play DPS and wait an extra 2 minutes, kind of thing. It's easily fixable by reward structure. I think obviously fixing some of the heroes would help, making them more fun to play or just more interactive to play. But reward structure would fix it immediately. Like, and again, this is another thing Blizzard has done in the past. They fixed it in World of Warcraft by adding rewards to tank and healer queues in the dungeon finder, and that has fixed it. Like, obviously DPS is still going to wait longer, but you're not waiting indefinitely because no one wants to do it. Somebody's going to see, oh, I can make 2,000 gold or something queuing up. I don't know what it is anymore, but it's still a decent amount. So reward structure would be enough to fix it. But in terms of the streamers go, all the streamers have always had that problem. Like I remember like Surfer playing like Osu. Flats has always played like some random game. Seagull, the same thing. Like I literally remember watching him play Doom while he was in the queue for Overwatch. It's something that has happened time and time again, and reward structure would fix it quickly.
It's Polybridge, by the way. It's the name of
Polybridge. I have Portal Bridge Constructor, which I think is like the other series. Like Polybridge, I think is like the new one they moved on to.
Gotcha. Well, I do want to jump ahead a little bit since this is a perfect segue to bring this up in regards to, future hero releases before we circle back to some of the Ramatra stuff. They did say that the next hero, following Ramatra, is set to release in April of 2023, which would be season 4 in regards to competitive. And this was announced during one of the meet and greets in Seoul from John Spector. And it's primarily worth mentioning that like we this had been mentioned in the past, but it wasn't really said and like echoed a whole lot in regards to what the plans were. But basically, like the plan was dating back to June. The next 2 of the 3 heroes following season 2 were going to be support heroes. So, obviously, we'll keep an eye on whether or not, they are going to kick in extra incentives between now and then. They might not, to a degree. Who knows? But either way, they are looking to address it with hero releases for support in particular. But it's a little weird though when you just figure, okay, well, one of our new heroes that just came out was a support, and yet here we are, not too far into the life cycle, and we're already hitting this issue. So I don't know if saying like, hey, here's one more support hero. Oh yeah, but it's coming out in April is going to be, you know, the fix in order to make sure things just kind of like work themselves out.
We can hope. The obviously Twitter latched onto the fact that we're not going to get a DPS hero until like 2024, but I think that's fine at this point. I think DPS is in a good spot. I think support needs some love, so we're going to see the tank and we're going to see the supports, and we're going to see the queue times improve for both of them. I think Kiriko didn't quite have the oomph that they expected her to in terms of affecting the support queue, probably because they locked her at level 55 behind the battle pass. But she's also a very high skill capped healer. Like she's not like Moira, or she's not like I'd even say Ana, where it's like very either easy or understandable to play. Kiriko, there's a lot to her, so I want to see. I hate to say it, but I want to see easier supports to play, so more people play supports. And I think that will definitely help. But Ramatra, he looks sick, man. I'm ready for this guy. He looks like he's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So, last week we kind of touched up on the lore behind the leader of the Null sector. And, at the time, we didn't really have a whole lot of details in regards to his toolkit. We basically like, all right, cool. He has a staff. We didn't really know a whole lot else about him other than the fact that like he looked fairly offensive in regards to his play style. And, during this event in Korea that they had for the media this past week, we did have some snippets in regards to his abilities. So like we don't have numeric values or anything like that, but here is the gist of the toolkit for Ramatra. He has his Omnic form, which we had talked about, because he does has 2 forms. He has Omnic and Nemesis. So his Void Accelerator, where the left click fires a projectile, and the wording on this in the toolkit was really weird. It says, fires a projectile that advances in a certain shape. I remember last week, there was that snippet from the dev saying, like, it was like a stream shape in regards to that. So we kind of have an idea of how it's going to look played in game. The right click creates a barrier at a target location. We have his E ability, which is Vortex of Gluttony, which launches nanospheres that can explode on impact with the ground, which create a damage force field. And then enemies that are caught within it are pulled to the ground and have reduced movement speed. We have Chastisement, which transforms him into his Nemesis mode for 8 seconds, where he gains 150 additional health So it goes from 450 to 600. And then his primary and alt fire also change in this form. With his left click attack, using his fist to generate a shockwave each time a fist is raised, and then shockwaves are able to penetrate through multiple targets. Then his right click reduces movement speed, but greatly increases the damage of his attacks. And then his ultimate shifts to Nemesis form and creates an energy zone around him, and then enemies caught within it take damage over time. And this persists until enemies are no longer being damaged by destruction. So in essence, Spyder, what we have here is a damage transcendence.
Reverse transcendence. Yeah. It's definitely that's what it seems like to me, like inverse transcendence. It does. The curious thing about the ultimate, and there's other questions I have about the rest of his kit, but we'll start with the ultimate, is can he move during it, or how fast can he move during it?
Yeah, is it transcendent speed? Because
Right.
Zen has some speed to him in it.
So that is the big one. The switch to Nemesis form, I've seen some back and forth on it. Some people think that it is like Bastion, and it is for 8 seconds, and then you pop out of it. Other people have said that just the cooldown is 8 seconds, and you could swap back and forth. So we don't know which it is. If I had to guess, I'd probably say like it's a temporary thing, like Bastion's. But who knows? Because he's a tank, you might want him to be a little beefier. But after seeing like the health increase, it makes me think it's more temporary. The Vortex of Gluttony sounds really cool, except for there's almost a gun that does exactly that in Destiny 2, and everybody hates it because it just makes playing PvP like really shitty. So other than that, I have to get a hold of him to test the right and left click. Like I don't have much comment on that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but I'm just glad that we have like some inclination of what he's going to be when he hits live servers here in season 2, which drops in December, so next month. So it shouldn't be too long before we get our hands on him. Well, also, we're gonna have to kind of unlock him unless you buy the premium battle pass for December, because level 55. Which if I'm just hitting 55 now, and that it is worth noting that was with the premium pass on my end, with the playtime I have had, definitely kind of puts me in a spot where I'm like, oh shit, like holidays are coming up. I'm probably gonna have to just drop the $10. I would be
swipe
really
away.
worried.
Just one
I'd be
swipe
really
away.
worried that I wouldn't have enough time. Yeah, so.
No, I was looking at it because we're getting kind of busy. I was kind of like, okay, if it comes down to the wire, how much does every battle pass level cost? And I was like, oh, this is prohibitive. I need to get as far in this battle pass as possible.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's what we can get. Reverse Transcendence. I cannot wait to play around with that. And honestly, I would not be surprised if it's the same speed as Transcendence.
I don't know. Tank as a tank ultimate. I could see him being able to move, but I think it's definitely going to be slower if he can move. But I also think that it may just be a wider area and he can't move at all, because of the wording of it. Because it, if the way they worded it, like he keeps doing it until people stop being damaged. If you're to like haul an ass around the map, that seems very broken.
Yeah.
So I would lean more towards stationary or like normal movement speed. But Transcendence got its movement speed buff later in its life, so maybe Ramatra will see all the Zenyatta zooming around and be like, I want to do that, and figure out how to kick it up a gear.
Yeah, my only concern, if it were stationary, would be to look at Orisa and her ultimate. I can't tell you like how many times it feels like, okay, you're hitting Q, and by the time you know that you will do damage, everyone is already out of dodge.
Hey, you know what pairs well with Orisa's ultimate? May's ultimate. I did that multiple times today, and people hate it because they're like, "Ah, Arissa's ultimate is garbage." Oh my god, Arissa just killed 5 of us because we couldn't move.
That is true. So there are some ways to actually work around it, but just baseline, that would be my primary concern if it, were to be stationary, because a lot of people not really feeling Arissa's ult in its current landscape.
No, it's definitely out of all the tank ultimates. It's maybe out of all the ultimates, it's probably one of the weakest.
Mm-hmm. Right on. So outside of that, we do have one other news bit, which I had mentioned a little bit earlier. That is that Blizzard Games will soon end support in China. So Blizzard is set to suspend game services in China due to the expiration of the current licensing agreement with NetEase, which runs through January 23rd of 2023. And the two sides have not yet been able to reach a new agreement, despite the fact that we have had licensing dating back to 2008 between Blizzard Entertainment and NetEase, and obviously we've seen partnership with some of the other game releases as well leading up to this point. And I did already mention. From the Overwatch League front, Apex teams are looking to relocate to Korea. What I did not mention is that if that's going to be the direction that they're taking, they're looking at playing on LAN for the Overwatch League for the China and Korean team.
That would be cool. Like I'm cool with that. More lands, the better. Oh, I have a baby. Hang on.
Well, while Spyder has a baby, I will just say in regards to like Overwatch League and just competitive esports in general. Obviously, like even right now with Contenders Korea, you may notice like, hey, they are playing in the studio, they are playing on LAN, and it makes things just so much better. I mean, you just have a different level of competitive integrity. You're not having to worry about pain. Sure, you might have a couple of pauses here and there if there are any issues in regards to the venue that they're using or the studio or what have you. But at the end of the day, it's a different sort of environment, and it's just a much healthier environment to actually play in, and it always brings out the best in regards to that. So just watching Contenders Korea play on LAN and then seeing this news, it's just like, man, I really want to see an extension of that at the pro level within the Overwatch League. So, should things come to this and we see relocation to Korea for the Overwatch League for APAC teams as a whole, honestly, it might be for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I missed the first part of that, but I caught the end of it. So I get what you're going for, and I definitely want to see the LAN more than what we have been doing. When Overwatch League started, we were in the Overwatch arena or whatever I forget what they called it, and I miss those days now because it was fun. You got all the teams together. You had the occasional home stand. I like that better than the online environment, I guess is the best way to put it. But I don't think we'll ever go back to that as a league-wide thing. Like we'll probably get East and West at this point. But if that's what they have to do, that unfortunately that will be one of the options that they have. With this China deal falling through, with NetEase, it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of this. Because like the article I have up on screen now is the one where basically NetEase blames a jerk at Activision for having the deal fall through, and they never say who it is, but we all know who it is.
Gee, I wonder.
And he's on his way out. So I'm curious to see how this will transition if the Microsoft deal goes through, because that's looking more and more likely, but also is coming under a little more fire recently. But this whole NetEase thing sucks. Like I feel bad for the players because there are people who played World of Warcraft, there are people who play Overwatch that are going to lose their accounts because to CEOs couldn't come to an agreement through pure ego. But good news, if you're a Diablo Immortal fan, they're keeping that. So you'll be just fine. But
Oh, so you can still play slots for gems. Fantastic.
exactly.
With your credit card.
With your credit card. But yeah, this whole deal, like I said, I feel like there's going to be a lot more to this story as it comes out. A few people have posted, like, knowing a little more about the situation in China that I was reading up on today, and they said there are obviously other publishers that they could go through. The problem is with the Chinese government's stance on video games and licensing and stuff. Even if they come to an agreement, like tomorrow, as an example, it would still take them multiple months to get that in place before it gets back up and running. And who knows, what the account situation will be at that point. Hopefully, things will just pop over, but you never know. So this is a big story that I started reading last night as I went to bed. I was like, ooh, this seems like this is going to be a big deal. And hopefully, we can get through it. But yeah, obviously my first question was, how will this affect Overwatch League teams? Because they generate a lot of money in China. If they're going to move to Korea, I think that will be good for the league, but I don't know how good that is going to be for the teams. So we could see some fallout there, even though, as fans, we'll get the LAN games. The behind the scenes is already testy on the Overwatch League from rumblings we've heard over the past year of teams not being happy about the money that they're making. And obviously, when you drop 95% of the players to rebuild across the league, something's got to change. So we'll see. But yeah, this was like a shock to the system last night.
Yeah, definitely one that was worth keeping an eye on. And obviously, like, we're probably gonna have more developments over the coming months with this story, so we'll definitely let you know if there are any changes on that front. Who knows, maybe they will actually strike an agreement to continue this licensing deal that they have with one another that has been going on for quite some time at this point. But all in all, at least they have some sort of plan in place should there not be a deal struck, at least at the competitive level. But, at least right now, it's definitely like a big blow, at least to the player base, just as a whole, just with how much business they have done in the East. But man, I definitely feel for the players. I would hate for them to put all that, work into the game, whether, they're just a fan of the game or if they're trying to, go pro at, any title really within the Blizzard universe. And just to have like the rug pulled out from underneath you would definitely be a really shitty feeling. And, relocating in itself is definitely going to take its toll, on the players and their families as well on top of that. So, got to be an interesting climate, to say the least, these next few months coming up as, things develop here.
Yep. Yeah, I pretty much said my piece. So, if you're looking forward to Dragonflight and you live in China, it ain't going to happen, it looks like. So, sorry.
Yep, that is unfortunate, but that was basically everything that we had around Watch this week. So yeah, just as a reminder, make sure you log in to get your Sojourn highlight intro. We'll have some additional ones coming out here throughout the remainder of the month, there being 3 in total for Sojourn, Chucker Queen, and Kiriko. And also, don't forget to go check out our interview with Overwatch 2 a voice actor of Farah, Jen Cohn, which is available on our YouTube and also be available in our RSS feed and in your podcatcher of choice first thing in the morning. Same with this episode. But yeah, that will pretty much do it for us here tonight on The Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 242. If you guys are looking to keep in touch with us, you can email the show at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, as long as that is still a thing that persists, at HND Overwatch. You can also find all of our YouTube content at Overwatch League Network. which we were talking a little bit about our handle. We might switch it over to H&D Overwatch just to coincide with our other
Mhm.
contact info. We'll update you guys on that front. But of course, really the best thing to do is to just talk to us over on our community Discord, engage with our listeners at discord.me/OWLN show. Of course, outside of that, you can also find all of our hosts over on Twitter as well. You can find Ramses at Ramses_GG. You can find myself at Totally Drunk, and Spyder. Where can the listeners contact you there?
I don't know. It seems like that Fox joke I make every week where you just send me a Fox is getting more and more of a reality. But for now, you can find me at _Spyder Gaming. Like Totem said, we're talking about changing the handle for the YouTube channel. It's still going to be Overwatch League Network, so you can still access it the same way there. There's just a possibility of another way to access it. We will probably go through with that once we figure out exactly what we want it to be. Just, so it'll make it a little easier to figure out. If you want to watch Heroes Never Die or Overwatch League Network or, any of the other shows, if any of those ever get up and running, or just our general YouTube content. Speaking to the YouTube video, I am aiming for the end of next week, assuming that this project doesn't keep ballooning as it is, because I do actually have some, I don't want to say downtime, but I don't have a whole lot scheduled the next week that could interfere with that. So hopefully I can get everything done research wise and start recording it. Like I said, I have multiple Excel spreadsheets. I have the script already being written as I'm talking about it. So other than, raw footage, which I'm kind of collecting all along the way. So hopefully the end of next week, and I am going to put that thing on every social media, because then hopefully it will gain some traction and people will finally have, the raw data to be like, okay, well, this is exactly how good or bad this situation is, rather than, boy, this feels really shitty, which it does.
Yes.
But, we'll take it from there. Other than that, like I said, you can find me on Twitter. Discord's definitely the best way to get a hold of me, because it seems like they have the longevity right now. So that's it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to the video when it does drop, because as someone who doesn't really delve into a lot of other FPS battle passes, I honestly don't even know what the current landscape is, because the only FPS title I currently play is Overwatch 2, and that's probably how it's going to remain.
The funniest story I have is I logged into Fortnite to check out the battle pass, and then I ended up playing Fortnite for 4 hours. So I played Apex for like an hour, and I played one game of Valorant. Unfortunately, like half of the enemy teams just left, and I was like, I'm gonna go do something else now. So, but there's some other good first-person shooter games out there that are a little more generous. So we'll see how things go.
Yep, but it's just a matter of, will you be more generous with your time to actually check them out more in the future? But yeah. For now, obviously, like next week is a holiday week, so I can't imagine we drop an episode next week because of Thanksgiving. So with that being said, we'll see you guys back in December for our return episode on that front. So don't panic. Next week if there's nothing else on there, but it's not gonna be like the hiatus that it was prior. It's just 1 week. That's all it's gonna be.
Right.
But thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Heroes Never Die. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined as always by my co-host Spyder, and we'll see you around in Discord and also in game. You guys take care and have a good night.
Good night.